G'day guys, it's Mark here from North Oz, and in today's video we are doing a final walk around tour of my 2021 Landcruiser Prado 150 GXL, and it is exactly that, a final tour, final walk around, because in 2 weeks I've got my new vehicle arriving. It's a four-wheel drive as well, so don't worry, the four-wheel drive theme is still sticking with the channel. And although I am getting rid of the Prado, the perfect Prado, we still have another Prado here anyway, the 2022 Prado, which we are doing things to, and there are some more videos coming out. So if you've come here for Prado content, don't worry, there's still going to be heaps of Prado content coming out. So I just want to do a little bit of a snapshot, a little bit of a walk around about how the car looks right now. And because I'm going to start taking stuff off the vehicle starting tomorrow. So everything's going to come off the vehicle, the drawer system, everything. So a little bit of a snapshot in time of what everything looks like. And I do get lots of questions about awnings and the 12-volt system and how I'm running stuff in the vehicle. So I thought I would just kind of answer everyone's questions with this one video. So I don't want this video to drag on too long, because I have done a walk around video about like 8 months or so ago, so I don't really want to spend too much time on it. So I don't want to waste too much of your time. So we'll go through it nice and quick, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas for your own Prado as well. And a little disclaimer is I've done everything on this vehicle myself, except for wiring up the 12-volt system, but that was still my design. So everything on this vehicle is something that you can do yourself at home with very minimal skills, because I'm not a mechanic or anything like that. So it gives you a bit of an idea. Something like this is very achievable for you at home, and hopefully gives you some ideas. So let's get stuck into it. So like I said, guys, I get lots of questions about the products on this vehicle. So what I've done to try to make it easy for you is I've taken and I've found as many of the products as possible, gotten their links and put them in the description for you. So let's go ahead. We'll start with the back and we'll start walking around. The very first thing isn't something that I've done, but it's something I ordered the vehicle with, which is, you'll see that there is no wheel on the back of this Prado. It is a lift back model, so you can order that from the factory. If you are interested in buying a Prado, you can option it like this from the factory, and it just gives you a little bit of extra access to the back, kind of like a split tailgate on things like the 200 series Landcruisers and stuff like that. I find it quite handy. I think for camping it's pretty good, because it means that I can just get in, get a few things out of my fridge without having to open up the tailgate all the way open. So that's it's not a modification I've done, but it is, I think, something that's very handy. And if I was to order this vehicle again, just based on looks and also the functionality, I think that that's quite good. And you do lose a little bit of functionality with losing a fuel tank. So one of the sub tanks will go, but I've never used and I've never required more than the 87 litre tank that comes with the vehicle. So for me, I still get about 1,000 kilometers out of that one tank, because the wheel does get relocated underneath, so you will lose a sub tank. So for me, flat back model is where we're starting with. I like the split kind of tailgate. I like the lift back model. It's pretty cool. And you'll see my rear fit out, and you can see I've got my Coolman fridge. It's a dual zone, and I've got a homemade pantry sitting on top of a homemade set of drawers. I've done a little bit of video, kind of how I put it together and what was involved with that. So I didn't do a full build series on that, but for everything we're talking about in this vehicle, guys, I will try to put as many kind of links and that up in the top. So hopefully they're popping up as I'm talking. So I've got the my Coolman dual zone, loving that. Big fridge, having the freezer functionality is really good as well for longer trips. And obviously I mostly just use the fridge function, because I normally do 2-3 day trips at a time. So I don't normally need a freezer, but it is handy to have, and I have used the freezer a couple of times. Moving on to what is the fridge sitting on, and also what my pantry is sitting on. And I've got these XTM slides. So that is just a very cheap company through BCF. They make these slides, and it's just stored here in Australia. And the slides, they go okay. Haven't had much rattling around or anything like that. I did have a bad experience with one of their drawer systems. I ended up getting rid of that in the end. So I ended up trying this company again for the slides, and the slides have been really good, and they're a lot cheaper than some of the other people are looking at some of the other companies. And the fridge is sitting on top of just some pieces of wood that I put on here, because the fridge is fractionally too wide for it to sit down into the little groove. I'm just using my Coolman factory mounting straps just to keep it strapped down to that fridge slide. Great fridge slide, really enjoyed it. I ended up using this little loop in the middle here for opening bottles and stuff, as a little bottle opener. I ended up using that to attach my dog to, because it's quite handy actually just having a little loop up there. So if I'm doing something, I can just, I've got a little carabiner on the end of her lead and I can just hook it onto there. So yeah, pretty handy. Doesn't rattle around, doesn't make any noise, and I'm very impressed for the price of how good those slides are. So I've got my pantry in here as well. It's a cool little thing. I ended up just making it with some of the scrap wood I had lying around. Just took me an afternoon to make. Again, same thing with the drawers. Took me about an afternoon to make. So nothing too crazy. Stuff that I can do, so you guys can do it as well. And yeah, and I just put some little tie downs on there as well, and it just sits in a fridge slide. So I just ended up strapping it down. And yeah, I got my spice rack on the side as well. I'll put all that overlaid as videos for you. And I've also just attached some lights here. I did have the lights further towards the back, but I found once I put the fridge and stuff in here, the light coming out of the back here was being blocked. So I ended up putting the lights on here, and that's actually worked out quite well. So when I actually pull the slide out, the fridge slide out, it actually ends up shining a light a little bit further out. So that's ended up being a pretty good little modification I made. The battery also sits in here as well, and I've also got my power on the other side, which I will show you shortly. In the back here, I get a lot of questions about this one, and it's my K-On rear shelf, they call it. But you know, it's kind of like a little storage, a little roof storage compartment, and I get a lot of questions about this. The Prado is a very tall vehicle. The rear space in it's really large once you take out those rear seats. So making sure that I'm using and putting to good use all of that space was a priority, and that's one of the reasons why I got the wagon. So I ended up getting this shelf, and it's really sturdy, really solid piece of equipment. Haven't had it come loose at all. I installed, like the first thing I installed when I got the vehicle, and it has been rock solid, and it's not moving at all. And up there, I just keep a few little things. I normally just keep my clothes up there, just keep them out of the way, so I don't have to pack another bag. But like just day-to-day stuff, or if I'm going camping, I'll bring things like a tarp, and you know, I'll have things like a little ground mat that Ginger can just sit on. Yeah, that's my dog. So yeah, so cool little things just to keep up there. I did keep in the past things like first aid kits and stuff like that, but I found different spots for those. You're probably wondering what these two little metal pieces are here, and they're actually brackets to support a drop-down table. One thing I guess I was a little bit, I guess I missed a little bit about my old ute is I used to have my tailgate that dropped down, and I could do all my cooking and stuff on there, and it was just handy to have. So a substitute for that was getting a drop-down table. One thing that I didn't consider when I was building my rear drawer setup was the fact that the table actually comes out quite a fair way. So I ended up having to take the table off in order to fit my drawer system. If I was to do it again, I would have made the drawer system a little bit more shallow, but that is something to consider if you do want to get, that's by a company called K-On. If you do want to get a drop-down table of any description, there's lots of companies that make them now. If you want to get a drop-down table and you want to have your rear drawer system, just make sure you double check that the drawer system does go back far enough to accommodate that. So that was one thing that I messed up a little bit. And in here, guys, you don't really have much of an option for storage. I've got the tire kit in there. That is a functional thing that just comes with the car. It's, you know, factory. And then in here, that's where you can actually keep some of your own things. So I keep things like, I normally keep all my awning straps and that. I normally keep them in there. And I've also got some like, just extra little straps like Max Tracks straps and stuff like that. So, but just handy little stuff. There's a little handle here as well for if you want to shut the vehicle, but I never use that handle to shut it. So I often keep things like doggy bags and stuff in there. So just whatever I'm kind of feeling, wherever I'm putting things for a camping trip, I just normally find spots for. So having a quick look at the drawer system, I've got a kind of like a 70-30 split here. So this is my 70 drawer. It's quite wide, and that fits a lot of my stuff, like things like my gas burner. And I've put some little bamboo organizers and stuff in there as well, which are handy just to keep things from shifting around a lot. And got things like my pots and pans. This is like the main drawer that I will keep out and I'll keep using over and over again. That's where I keep most of my things when I'm camping, all my kitchen stuff, tissues, toilet paper, all that stuff will go in that big drawer there. So if I was to have my time again, I probably would have done 3 smaller drawers, because this smaller drawer here actually ends up holding quite a lot, probably even more than what I have in the big drawer. But in this one here, I don't normally keep too much in here that I really use a lot. So things like tools, mozzie coils, tie downs for the swag, rope, stuff like that, some kindling, you know, little bits and pieces, stuff that I'm not going to go to all the time. One thing that is quite handy about that rear shelf, or any metal in the car for that matter, is having a magnetic light, and I'm just able to just stick that up there, and it will give me a little bit of extra light if I want it in the cabin, so that the lights aren't staying on all the time, the factory lights. So yeah, I normally keep lights and stuff in there as well. Super handy. I really like having that smaller drawer, and yeah, like I said, the smaller drawers are definitely the way to go. Tucked in the side here as well, I've just got my first aid kit. There's a couple of little awkward little wings on the side here. So yeah, I normally store things like the first aid kit. Easy to get out there as well. You always want to have 2 first aid kits, making sure that they're always accessible whether we're camping. So if we're camping outside of the vehicle, that's my go-to kit. And when I'm in the vehicle, I've got another one, which I'll show you very shortly. So moving on to the interior now, we've got car seat covers by Shark Skin. They're waterproof. I found them to be very good, and they do provide a little bit of extra cushioning. I have made a couple of remarks in the past about this vehicle, about seats not being particularly comfortable. So that is something that, you know, kind of adds to the comfort. And as well, the factory seats have this weird cloth on it as well that really grabs you when you get into the vehicle. So this just allows you to slide into the vehicle a little bit easier. So on the back end of the K-On shelf, I've got some quick fists, which are holding in my Fiskars splitting axe. Often get asked by heaps of people at campsites if they can use my axe, because everyone seems to forget theirs. So, you know, super handy to have an axe at all times. And I just leave it in there, which I find to be fine. You know, it doesn't move around much at all, and these quick fists do a really good job. So you guys are probably wondering, with the battery in the pantry, how do I end up charging my phone and my camera gear and all the other stuff? You know, that's very important. Things like my nephew's Nintendo Switch. You know, how do we charge all this stuff? Well, this is how we do it. I've got the battery box top, so the top of the old battery box. I've ended up putting that on the back of the pantry, and I just run the cables through, and that's like my little power center. You know, I've got my USB here. I've got a little extra distribution box here, which I don't end up using because sometimes I find that the power does drop a little bit through here if I'm running the fridge and that. So yeah, I have had some issues with that. But yeah, in the end, it works well. I end up using the USBs from the little top of the battery box there. And then if I want to charge something that requires 240 volt, often things like, you know, my nephew's Nintendo Switch, or, you know, my, you know, more like my camera gear for my Nikon, that will charge up through here, my little 240 volt inverter. So yeah, I run my fridge and stuff off all this, and it's been working quite well. No issues with it, and it does what it needs to do. With the third row of seats gone, there's just these little cup holders there that don't really do much, so I ended up just putting a little light there as well, and you can kind of see the first aid kit through there too. So this is where I spend most of my time, of course, traveling and whatnot. And here we have got a RAM mount, and I have attached my Garmin InReach Mini. You know, when I'm out of range, of course, it's always good to keep in touch with family so that they know exactly where I am, and they can see where I am as well by using the geolocation function on it. Very handy. I do, on longer trips, plug in a USB, micro USB into the side here, and then I run it down into here, which is a switch that does not come factory with the vehicle. I've ended up wiring up a USB socket there, so when the vehicle is on, that is on. And these lights here as well, I'll show you what they do in a little bit too, but they are not factory either. Something else that isn't factory is the light bar switch here as well. Okay, that one there is something that I have included myself, and I put it in when we were doing the 12 volt system. All right, so moving around now, you know, the factory system, the factory head unit works fine, but I have made a little modification to it, and that exists down in here. So I just have got plugged into the wired CarPlay USB socket. I've got this little device, and I've made a video on it. It's called the One Car Stereo AI Box Lite. And what it does is it just allows me to have wireless Apple CarPlay without having to plug in my phone directly into here, which on a day-to-day basis is actually very handy. On longer trips, I'll just plug my phone into here anyway so I can charge it. So it's not really that big of a deal, but it is handy day to day, just having that plugged in there, because it will just connect up automatically once the car turns on. So if you guys are interested in that, I've got links in the description for that as well. Here is my GME radio, so just a GX460, really basic one. From memory, it's a 2-watt, and it just keeps me in contact with just people that are on the road. It's nothing too crazy. In here, I've just got some of the basic stuff, things like a couple of dog tie-down points, so I can tie down my dog or anybody else's dog that wants to come with us. I've also got in here a face mask as well. They're always handy to have. I've got a little microfiber cloth down there too, that little blue thing you can see down there. And I've also got some headphones as well, which I just keep in there because it's always handy to have a spare pair of them. Also keep one of my trusty camping knives here, the Buck Huntsman. Very handy little knife there. Do rate it. I've had that for something like 12 or 13 years. And this here, that's kind of staring us in the face, is kind of like my grab and go road trauma kit. So what it does is I just open up the center console, just grab that, and away I go. And in here I've got all sorts of things, things like tourniquets, and you know, I've got a little knife in there as well. Very, very sharp buck knife. That's the sharpest one I own, so I make sure I put that one in there. And I've also got things like pens and little road light as well. I can just chuck on the side, kind of like a little road flare, kind of, but it's a little torch. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. So just a little grab and go kit in the middle there. And in the center console, I just have just the basic stuff, you know, your extra doggy bags, things like that. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, and then obviously all the factory manuals this thing comes with is unreal. It's pretty crazy how many manuals this thing comes with. And yeah, and you can see here, that's the name of the company that make these seats, and I found them to be very, very nice, especially this little center console bit adds a little bit of extra cushion. So very, very nice place to be in. I do like the seating position of the Prado. It's a very, very big area, and I quite enjoy spending a lot of time in here. But one thing that I really don't like, and it's something that I've talked about in the past, is how high that thigh comes up, and that's not adjustable. And that does cause quite a bit of pain over long periods of time. So that's something that I have complained about, and it's something that you guys as well have also confirmed for me too. So, but overall, guys, that's the interior. Very functional. You'll see I don't have many cables or anything like that. I like a nice clean interior, even though it's a little bit dirty at the moment. But you know, nice clean interior, nothing going around. You know, no cables or anything being strung through different sections. No gauges, nothing. Very clean, very simple. On the side here, I've got some dark tinted weather shields. The reason why I have put weather shields on this vehicle is because I'll show you in a little bit why, and it's got something to do with this solar panel on the roof. So I'll come back to that in a second. So for now, I just want to talk about the last bit that's remaining, which is actually the roof. And you know, the big part of my build was actually having this whole roof area here kitted out, because I knew that it's going to be my only exterior storage space that I could actually use. So starting on the outside, I've got my I wanted a private changing area because I found that there just wasn't many change rooms and stuff when I was doing day trips and going camping. So I ended up getting this 23-0 shower tent awning, which I've done a little review on in the past as well. And of course, I've got it all hooked up to a Rhino rack backbone system with quite a big Pioneer platform here, which stretches all the way to the back there. On the top, I ended up using a custom kind of, I guess custom made, I guess you can call it, some Batwing Rhino rack awning mounts there. So I ended up using those because I found them to be really, really sturdy. And you can see it's got 2 mounting points to the platform. So I do rate using these Batwing mounts. They are expensive, but they are super solid. I've got the Rhino rack, I think it's called something like a load tie down kit, and that's where I put my swag in the middle here when I'm going camping. Over here, I've got Max Tracks. I've got 4 of them at the moment. I've really only ever used 2 at a time, but it is always good to have a couple spare, I suppose, for leveling out and whatnot. And I've also got a Max Tracks, it's a Max Tracks mounting pins, but they are sold by or manufactured by Kaon. So they have the little mounts there, but I think they use the Max Trax pins themselves, so the actual proper company. So very handy. As you can see, I got a lock on them because I don't want them to go anywhere. And then I have ended up custom making some mounting points for my solar panel. And the solar panel from memory was 160 watts. From memory, I can't quite remember, but I got that one quite a long time ago, but it does the job there. You can see how I've mounted it up. And I've also, as well, got on the front here a steady light bar. From memory, it's something like the STX or something like that. Nice little bar, bit more of a spot than I was anticipating. It doesn't have as much of a spread as I was hoping, but anyway, I've got it mounted up to a steady little mounting bracket there as well, which kind of mounts up through the bottom there. And then I've also got, which is one of the biggest things I really like, these little mounting brackets here on the side. So I've got 4 lights, one under there, one under there, and then 2 on the other side. What happens is, go in here, click the on button here, and then here we go, I've got light, and that's very handy for the campsite. So yeah, something I really like about that. And you know, something that I took a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time thinking about how I wanted to get light around my campsite. And you know, those things were a crucial part of it. You know, obviously you can see that I spent a lot of my time organizing and thinking about how I want to set out this roof rack. One thing I get asked a lot, guys, is what do I do and how did I get the power up to the roof? And I had 2 choices, really 3 choices, and the main popular choices are to run it up through the tail light area and to kind of drill a hole through there, run it up through the top, through there. Another option is to just drill a hole straight up through the roof and then provide power that way and kind of silicon up the area there. I'll put a bung in there. What I ended up doing is I got, and this is what I talked about with the auto electrician, is we ended up just running it through here. And that then goes into the engine bay and all the places that it needs to go to from there. But as you can see, we've just run it up through the side here, goes up through the weather tracks there, the rain tracks, and then it goes up into the vehicle, and then we can zip tie it and put it where it needs to go. So it just goes up to all the lights and all the places that it needs to go. And that's pretty much it for the exterior. As you can see on the other side, it just mimics it exactly. And I have, because the cables would have been too thick to put them all through the one section, what we've done is we've run the light bar wiring down this side here, and we've put all of the other lights up through the other side there. So pretty handy. I think it looks pretty clean. No one can really see how the wires actually get up there unless you point it out. So in my opinion, a pretty clean little setup. Now, coming back to how do I get some solar panel into my 12-volt system? Well, here I have got my Anderson plug that kind of has been spat out through the side here. And that just stays there. I can tuck it in or tuck it up or do whatever I want with it. But that's coming from my solar panel. So what I do is I've actually got lying around here somewhere. You know, I haven't used it for a little while because I haven't gone camping in a few weeks. So what I've got though is I've got an extension Anderson to Anderson plug lead. And what it does, it connects up from here and it goes all the way to the back here and into here. Now, it might be a little bit dark in here, guys, but it goes into here. Now, I'll see if I can zoom in on that for you, but there is a cable in here, and that there is where I can plug my solar into. And that will then just charge my 12-volt battery. So it runs into the 25 amp hour DC to DC charger, which is tucked in through the back here. And it's just tucked away there, nice and neat. So I don't use the solar all the time, only when I get set up in certain areas for a long period of time. Now you're probably wondering, well, where do these rain shields come into it? And there's no way if it's raining that I can have this plugged into my DC to DC charger. There's no way I can actually plug that in without having rain coming into the vehicle. So what I've ended up doing is I put these rain shields on, because what I do is I just roll that window down a little bit and I run the cable into the vehicle that way through the interior. And that way I'm not getting any rain into the interior of the vehicle. Well guys, that just about concludes the final chapter of the 2021 Perfect Prado, and it has been exactly that, the perfect Prado. I haven't once gone on a trip or driven the vehicle at all and thought, I wish I was in a different vehicle. It's perfect. You know, the thing runs so well. It's a very nice vehicle to be in, and I'm very fortunate to be able to afford a vehicle like this, and it's been great. I haven't had any issues with it at all, and I've built it up to a point where I had everything I need in it, and when I go camping, I now know kind of what my basic needs are when I'm camping and what I need in a vehicle. So that's something that this vehicle has taught me a little bit. And you know, I will be moving on to a new project. It is very similar in terms of the platform that this has been built on, but just so you guys know that there is still a Prado in the episodes coming up, because we have another 2022 Prado here anyway, so we will be using that as well. I've still got parts coming in, I've still got installed videos on the way as well on the pipeline, and I've also got my brother's 2022 Toyota Fortuner. So, you know, we still have a lot of different vehicles we need to do comparisons on, and this new vehicle I'm getting, I think is going to be really good for those comparisons because it's built on a very similar platform. So if you stayed this long till the end of the video, then you will know kind of where I'm heading with this. Guys, I think I'd be missing something if I didn't talk about the vehicle. You know, I feel like a lot of YouTubers and stuff, they get very caught up in the whole, I'm getting a new vehicle and I'm getting this and I'm getting that. And, you know, I don't want you guys to see me like that. It's not something that, it's not the way that I think. You know, yes, getting a new project and a new vehicle is exciting. For me, I just love vehicles. I love the fact that I can get a different type of vehicle, and I am going to try that style of vehicle, and if I like it, I'll keep it, and if I don't, then I'll be going back to something very similar to this. And it's just that I want to try something a little bit different before I make up my mind about what I want to keep for a very long time. And I feel like that I really need to say, you know, to you guys, and at the moment it's just me and the camera, but it's something that I guess I want to just talk about. And it's something that, you know, what these vehicles do for me, you know, and this vehicle for me, the Prado, it's been great. Like, it's taken me everywhere I wanted to go. It's taken me to places that I didn't think I would go, you know, on trips that I didn't think I would ever take, and it's given me confidence to kind of step out of my comfort zone a little bit. But not only that, I mean, before the Prado came along, I never really put out much content. I put out some content about the Navara, and at that point I had something like 100, 200 subscribers after something like 70 or 80 videos. So, you know, it wasn't really about, and it never has been about, the number of subscribers that I've gotten. But when I started making videos about this Prado, which I wasn't going to do, but I thought, you know, because I thought, oh, it's a Prado, who's really going to care anyway? Once I started making videos about it, I started getting some views, you know, and then you guys started joining me along the way. So for me, this vehicle has grown the channel from, in the last year, from something like 300 subscribers, you know, 200 subscribers to where we are now, which is, you know, we're creeping up to 3,000 subscribers, which I'm very thankful for. Thank you guys. So for me, I grow, and you can probably tell by the tone of my voice that I get a little bit attached to these vehicles, and I do get a bit emotional about these vehicles, because it's not something that, and I want you guys to know that, you know, these vehicles, they're a big passion of mine. You know, I never got into four-wheel driving until a couple of years ago. You know, I'm 29 years old now, and I only started going camping like 2 years ago. So for me, this is all very new to me. And having this vehicle that's been so reliable has really kind of pushed, and yeah, reliable has also got things in it that I want. It's really pushed me outside of my comfort zone to go camping and do things I never thought that I would really do. And it's been really good for me to go outdoors and you know, see more of Australia. So for me, you know, and I guess for you guys, from your perspective, I just don't want you to think, oh, here we go, we have another YouTuber who's moving on to a different build, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's not like that. I get very attached to these vehicles, and I spent a very long time thinking about whether or not I want to actually sell this vehicle. And it's something that I feel like getting this next vehicle is going to really not only improve just general lifestyle, because it's going to be a different style of vehicle, so I can actually use it for different projects, not only around the house, but also different projects coming up as well. So I feel like that style of vehicle will suit me a little bit better. And you know, I don't take these decisions very lightly, getting rid of vehicles. You know, vehicles and you know, cars, and they've been a very big passion of mine for a long time. You know, ever since I was something like 7 or 8 years old, when Dad took me to my first car show, which was, that was a long time ago. It was early 2000s, and the cars that were there were ridiculous. It was early 2000s when Fast and Furious was coming out, and everyone was doing up their Holdens and Fords like it was Fast and Furious, with ridiculous body kits and candy paint jobs and stuff. And the interiors were white leather, and just looking around at all those different vehicles, I looked at them, and it drove it kind of made me very passionate about it. And the vehicles and stuff that I'm able to own now, now that I'm an actual adult, I can afford stuff. It's really, it's not something I take lightly. This is my hobby, and I have grown attached to the Prado, and I have grown attached to my WRX, even though I've got it up for sale. But I don't know if I'll be able to let it go or not, because I just love the vehicle that much. And I've made a lot of memories in this vehicle, and it's something that, it's going to be tough to let go. And I have, like I said, I've thought about it quite a lot, but I just don't want to be seen as that person that's like, oh, now he's got this and now he's got that. And, that's not how I think. It is going to be exciting moving on to a different project. And I have only owned the car for something like a year and a half, but I feel like that this next project coming up is going to be something that's going to be really good for me, but it's also going to be very handy to have for my next projects coming up as well. So that was my little rant. This video went a lot longer than I thought it would go for, but I just think that it's important that I share with you guys the fact that this Prado has done a lot for me. It's done a lot for the channel, and something that I'm very thankful for is that it's brought a lot of you, the viewers, to the channel and to the community. So that is pretty much all I want to say, guys. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that we've talked about in the video today, please put them in the comment section. I always look forward to your comments, guys. It's one of the highlights of my week. And the other thing is, if you think you know what my next vehicle is that's coming up, if you think you know what it is, put it in the comment section. If enough of you get it right, because I've given so many hints, if enough of you get it right, I'll run a little bit of a raffle, and I'll give out some of the North Oz stickers. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you'll enjoy the next kind of phase of North Oz, where we're introducing a couple of new vehicles, and we're also continuing a Prado build as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.